BSHF BSHF 101 Unit 23 Dance and Music. Introduction. Dance and music as ancient performing arts have always been a part of the life of Indian people. Our religious literature recognized dance as an important activity in the human search for God. The relics of earliest civilization in India clearly demonstrate the importance of dance. In the latter period too, dance remained at the forefront of all the performing arts. We learn about it from the sculptures, from the paintings, as also from numerous textual treatises on the art of dance. Music too has an old and long tradition. It has also enjoyed patronage of the people in general. In fact, the birth of music lay in the ancient past. In the religious activities of the people, the chanting of scriptures and paying musical offerings to God is a well documented activity. It was also discovered that the sound produced from different parts of the human body, the abdomen, lungs, throat, and head, made a system by itself. The ratios and proportions which sound patterns displayed soon developed into an order called Shruti. Gradually, the musical scales were standardized and laws were framed to regulate the practice of singing and instrument playing. This allowed the evolution of melodies and a system of musical notations to come into being. In its simplest and most obvious form and meaning, a dance is the physical expression of the emotive content of music. The pleasure of music is in the listening. The pleasure of dancing is in watching that music take a bodily shape and express its meaning in a visual experience. In the following sections, we shall take you on a journey across the wide spectrum of Indian dance and music, as also through their historical growth and development. Indian performing arts, as we have told you above, are age-old arts. Hence, they have evolved considerably over the past several thousand years. An understanding of this development is necessary for a proper appreciation of their aesthetic as well as material qualities, dance, attribute, and evolution. In the Indian literary tradition, there is no dearth of critical writings on the art of dance, both at the level of theory and technique. The texts provide valuable information, but the most important and also fundamental among all these works is Natya Shastra. It was composed by Bharat, a sage, and its date is generally believed to fall between 2nd century BC and 2nd century AD. Most of the information on theory and technique given here is thus based on the same text. Theory and technique. The theory of Indian dance is holistic in its exposition and cannot be understood in isolation. Without taking into account the technique of the dance at the level of technique, the art of dance has to be comprehended as an interesting synthesis of the art of sculpture, painting, music, and even literature. The dance texts do not deal with the technique in isolation of one or all of the above. All the treatises in fact consider dance as one amongst many communication techniques. The Natya Shastra thus state categorically about dance in the following words: this art will be enriched by the teachings of every scripture and will give a review of all arts and crafts. The theory of dance is an integral part of the tradition of drama, Natya. At a very early stage of their development, dance and drama fused themselves into one. Thus, by the time Natya Shastra was composed, the dance was very much a part of drama. Evidently, in the text, then both appear as one, consciously conceived as one. They also have numerous points of contact. The theory of Indian dance has actually to be picked out and its principles selected with discrimination from the entire teaching technique of drama prescribed by Bharata. According to संगीत संगीत टंकार अभिनय दर्पण and other medieval treatises, dancing is divided into three distinct categories, namely Natya, Nritya and Nrita. Natya corresponds to drama and Nritya to gesticulation when it is performed to the words sung in a musical melody. Nrita corresponds to pure dancing, where the movements of the body do not express any mood, bhav, and do not convey any meaning. All these aspects use movements of the limbs and poses of the human body as their medium. The other type of distinction stated by these texts is that of Tandava and Lasya. Hence, the technique of classical Indian dancing can be classified either under Nritya, Nrita and Natya or Tandava and Lasya. The terms are prevalent among practicing dancers, and we find that dancers from all parts of our country speak an identical language of basic technique, even though there may be serious variations in the interpretation. On this basis, the technique of dancing can be classified under two clear heads: pure dancing and dancing with miming and gesticulation. It would be more appropriate to term the latter as Angika, Abhinay or just Abhinay, Abhinay or just Abhinaya. Historical growth. The history of Indian classical dance extends from earliest days of civilization to the present day. India prehistory and proto-history also provide sufficient evidence of this fact. For example, there is the dancing girl from Mohenjo-daro and the broken torso of Harappa period suggestive of dance pose. There are beautiful metaphors and smiles in the Vedas based on the art of dance. We can trace the history of dance into three main time divisions. The early period comprises the evidence found in the cave paintings, engravings, the evidence of Harappan civilization, and the literary evidence which can be had from the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Brahmans, and the epics. The second piece is from the 2nd century BC to the 9th century AD. This includes the evidence available from Buddhist stupas such as those at Behrut, Sanchi, Bhaja, Amravati and Nagarjunkonda, and the caves of Ellora and temples in different parts of India from Kashmir to Orissa, especially the early Gupta temples and those of Bhubaneswar. The third period from the 10th or 12th to the 18th century AD includes early medieval and late medieval monuments. While there are no literary records of the prehistoric period, in the latter half of the first period and in the second period, Sanskrit exercised outstanding influence on the intellectual and artistic life of the people, and its rich literature manifested the all-round development of the arts in the country. This may be considered as a period of unity along with the emergence of some regional styles. In the third period, there was a marked development of regional architectural, sculptural, pictorial, music and dance styles along with the development of regional literature. It was in the second period that there was the first articulation of a self-conscious understanding of dance as an art. The compilation of Natya Shastra confirms it. We also find that there was an effort to stylization, although none of the monument and the sculptural reliefs show that they had arrived at a stereotyped convention merely to be followed or repeated. The motifs in the sculptural tradition was those of the tree and woman, the Yaksha and Yakshini, and many others. All these finally crystallized into the dance of Shiva and that of Krishna. In Behrut, Sachi, Mathura, and elsewhere, there are innumerable Yakshas and Yakshinis who stand against tree and pillar, hold branches or birds, etc. Each of these men and women are seen in the dance pose. Alongside are dance scenes with full orchestra. This is also the period of the emergence of the sculptural figures of gods and goddesses, especially Shiva, Durga, Saraswati, and Ganesha. Each has a dance aspect popularly called the Nritta Murti. From the sculptural evidence of the second period, we realize that the dance must have been central to the culture for the sculptor to feel inspired and arrest it in stone repeatedly. To this second period also belonged the construction of stupas and temples. Different aspects of life have been depicted on the railings of gate of stupas and the walls of the temples. Amongst these are the motif of dancer, the dance recital, as also the dancing aspect of god and goddesses. The Orisian temples of Bhubaneswar and even earlier the stupas of Ratnagiri tells us of the preoccupation of the sculptor with the image of dance. The temples of Rajarani of Parasurmeshwara and of Lingaraja all reverberate with the music and dance. Innumerable figures entwined with trees or pillars, holding birds, standing on animals or dwarfs, smiling or more serious, are depicted in panel after panel on the outer walls of these temples. Looked at closely, one is impressed by the fact that the sculptor was not only a keen observer of movement but was also a self-conscious illustrator of the basic positions, that is the sthanas and the fundamental movements called the charis described in the Natya Shastra. The monuments of central India, especially those of Khajuraho, built by Chandels and Udayeshwar of Paramaras, belonging to the 11th and 12th centuries, also present a wide array of movement patterns from solo standing figures to figures in Ardha Mandali to groups and finally to the most impressive series of flying figures. Leaves a staggering impression of the popularity of dance. The evidence of dance in mural paintings ranges from the famous dance scenes of Bagh caves to Ajanta, Ellora and Panna Malai. The impression of the universal popularity of the dance motifs is further reinforced by the evidence available in Sanskrit literature of the classical period. In the epics Ramayana and the Mahabharata, many dance performances are prescribed. In the works of poet Bhasa, Kalidasa and others until the time of Harsha, we encounter many precise descriptions of dancers and dance recitals. From all this, one can gather that the poet and dramatists were equally well versed in the technical intricacies of dance. They appreciated the aesthetic beauty and drew upon this art to structure their play on poetic and dramatic edifice. From the 13th century onward, one can find manuals on dance from practically every region of the country. Even a superficial study of these manuals emphasizes two broad facts. First, that despite the regional variations, all schools subscribed to the basic principles of the Natya Shastra tradition. The dance continued to be divided into Natya and Nritya on one hand and into Tandava and Lasya on the other. The second is that although they continue to follow these broad principles, many distinctive regional styles evolved and each region ultimately developed a distinct vocabulary. This second fact led to the formation of different classical styles in India. The beginning of contemporary classical styles, be it Bharatanatyam, Kathakali, Manipuri, Odissi, or Kathak, can be traced back to developments in the medieval period, roughly dating from 1300 AD to 1800 AD. The recent revival of interest in dance, developed as a sign of national pride in the glories of indigenous art and culture, helped the development and popularity of our various dance styles. During the past 5 decades, many layers of the past artistic glory have been uncovered. The digging continues, and each time one delves deeper, a greater treasure is discovered. Indian classical dances. Bharatanatyam is perhaps the oldest among the contemporary classical dance forms of India. Its claim to antiquity rests not on its association with the Natya Shastra, as also on the overwhelming literary, sculptural, and historical evidence on Bharatanatyam. It is fairly well established that the dance was performed both as a solo dance and in groups. However, the present form of Bharatanatyam crystallized as a solo dance about the 19th century, primarily through remarkable contribution of 4 brothers from Tanjore, Chennaya, Pannaya, Vedivelu, and Sivanandam. In the villages of Tamil Nadu, Bharatanatyam continued as a part of the presentation of a Bhagavad Mela tradition. However, here it was performed by men only. The efforts of E. Krishna Iyer and later other pioneers revived Bharatanatyam as a dance of classical repute. Subsequently, Rukmini Devi decided to study Bharatanatyam under the grand old master Meenakshi Sundaram Pillai and from Mailapura Gauri Arnama. In 1936, she gave her first performance. This was the lighting of a new fire. The post-independence period was an era of revival and reconstruction. Institutions began by Rukmini Devi recitals performed by Bal Saraswati and disciples trained by Meenakshi Sundaram Pillai such as Shanta Rao all left a deep impact. Kathak is one of the most popular dance form of North India. It is also called the Natwari dance. The genesis of this dance is commonly traced from the word Kathak figuring in ancient Sanskrit lexicons. It indicated the existence of community of storytellers through dancing and various parts of the story. The Jain religious literature also mentions a specific category of people, the entertainers, through a word kahag. In its present form, Kathak was developed and given patronage in the court of the Nawabs of Awadh. One noticeable deviation from the original structure of Kathak during the growth in Awadh is the preponderance of sensuous elements. Musical forms such as tapa and thumri now provided the rhythmic base of the dance. The two percussion instruments that have come to be used heavily in Kathak performs are tabla and pakhawaj. Pakhavaj. The costume used in Kathak is generally brilliant sherwani, churidar pajama, a decorated cap, and agarakha, fine tunic, etc. The Muslim and Rajput impact is clearly visible on the costume. Kathak has been promoted through three main gharanas: Lucknow, Jaipur, and Banaras. In fact, the Jaipur and Banaras gharanas owe their origin to the Lucknow gharanas. The kings of Kathak, Lachu Maharaj and Sambhu Maharaj, belonged to Lucknow. This gharana was founded by the grandfather Maharaj Thakur Prasad, who was a courtier and the dance teacher of Nawab Wajid Ali Shah. His two sons, Maharaj Kalka Prasad and Bindadin, did yeoman service to the cause of Kathak. Some of the other important artists have been Birju Maharaj, Gopi Krishna, Sitara Devi, Damayanti Joshi, etc. Kathakali is the dance from the southernmost state of India. Its center has been the region of Kerala and Malabar. The genesis of the word Kathakali is generally traced to the combination of Katha and Kali, the literal meaning of which is dance drama. This tradition of dance drama has been popular in the Malabar region primarily in the form of Krishna and Rama ballads. The same folk art was rechristened in the 17th century AD by the ruler of Travancore state, Maharaja Veerkeral Varma, as Kathakali. The lyrics used in this dance seem to be influenced very largely by Jaydev's Geet Govinda. The dance form, curiously, is an exclusive domain of the male dancers. Even female roles in storyline are performed to perfection by male artists. In support of the performance of dance, a group of singers keep simultaneously reciting the poems and epics. The artists who perform Kathakali do not sing the lines themselves. The actions are all executed in silence by the artists, only through the pose and postures of body and face. These dance postures are more complex than those used in Bharatanatyam. One of the peculiarities of this dance form is its costume and very elaborate makeup of the face. In this respect, Kathakali has resented and also kept alive and continued the ancient dance dramas of Kerala, such as Chakyar Kuthu and Kutiyattam. The face is mostly painted with red and yellow, and the eyes and eyelashes are adorned with lines in white all around. These white lines are known as kuti. The headdress in Kathakali is of special significance as it also defines the hierarchical status of different artists participating in the performance. The dance is performed all through the night on a stage which is simple yet specially designed for Kathakali. A large brass lantern is invariably hung on the stage. The beginning of the performance is preceded by Chaidakaran, a ritual playing of drums. Traditionally, the stage representation of this dance was immediately preceded by a practice session called Sevakali and undertaken in the precincts of a temple. Late late Shankaram Nambudri and Gopinath have been Kathakali artists of repute. In the propagation of this dance from late Vallatol, the famous poet and dancer of Kerala had done tireless work. He had made it suitable to the requirements of changing times. An organization known as Kerala Kala Mandalam was set up by him and has since done commendable work. Indian music and development. The music in India has found a clear description in old Sanskrit texts, where it has been described as Geetam, Vedyam, Nrityam, Trayam, Sangeet, Muchit. Music is composed of three basic parts: the vocal, the instrument, and the dance. It is true that all these three forms of art are interrelated through all have also grown and developed somewhat independently. It is an interesting fact that Indian music since very beginning developed along two parallel streams. One of the stream used music abundantly in the religious ceremonies, while the other equally rich tradition is that of recourse to music during popular festivals or on occasions of public entertainment. The former is known as Marg music and latter is called Desi. The two streams did not remain independent of each other. The truth is that the fountainhead of both has been popular music and therefore there is no difference in their parentage. Since religious ceremonies gradually became the monopoly of a specialized group, the Marg stream in some ways distanced itself from the multitudes of people and later come to be designated as classical. Unlike this, the other stream which Desi remained in the domain of people and gained great popularity in a variety of forms in all regions of India. To further clarify the difference, we would like to equate Marg music and quiet, soulful flow of the water of a river like Ganga or Godavari. In today's context, the musical styles such as Dhrupad and Khayal will be known as Marg music. Unlike the Desi genre, is like the free-flowing sonorous streams in the hills. The only controlling feature in this kind of music are regulations of popular taste. One of the significant marking on Desi music is the variety of sounds that it incorporates. Modern singing of ghazals and thumris may be classified as falling under Desi music. Some of the non-classical forms of Indian music owe their genesis to specific regional styles. Thus, for instance, the Khayal style during the era of Dhrupad music was rated as form semi-classical or even non-classical in character. Gradually, and with the inclusion of newer elements, as also under great popular pressure, Khayal got elevated to the status of a full-fledged classical musical form. Similar, if not identical, histories can be traced for categories like ghazal, the thumri and dadra. Some of the more popular regional forms such as Chaiti, Kajri or Rasiya today find a place in the classical style. We would in fact like to suggest that no formations in the realm of fine arts may be considered eternal. There has to be a continuous interaction between classical and the popular forms for the former to survive and move onward. The inclusion of ragas like Khamaj, Khambhavati, Kafi, Pilu, Mand, Mallavi or Sarang in the category of classical music is sufficient supporting evidence in favor of this contention. Apart from this distinction based essentially on the content, in Indian music there also exists another stylistic classification. Today, two main divisions are noticeable based on such variations. These are known as North Indian and Carnatic styles. The main distinguishing feature of the two styles is the performance of local colors in age. The argument is sustained on the strength of an ancient text, Brihadeshi, authored by Matang Muni, wherein specific mention of regional varieties being classified under north and south is available. The North Indian and Carnatic styles owe their origin to essentially the same source. The difference that becomes apparent in these styles is caused by regional or local color. A quick glance on the development of music over a long period of history reveals that, at least from the 7th century AD, several regional variations began to seep in. The mainstream music, if at all there would have been any, was now influenced in a large measure by these new local or regional developments. Between 7th and 13th century AD, the Indian music also come in contact with musical styles of other countries. This was an important period, especially from the point of view of the enrichment of Indian musical tradition. One particular influence, and the one that probably resulted in the further growth of North India and Carnatic as distinct styles, needs to be mentioned. This was the contact of Irani music and related treaties that Indian musical tradition. Naresh Haripal of Saurashtra, Gujarat, clearly mentions these two styles of distinct streams of Indian music in his 4th century AD treatise called Sangeet Sudhakar. Music. Key features. We have described in earlier sections the developments of Indian musical tradition. We have also discussed the development of the two main styles of Indian music. An important question with which we are now faced pertains to the elements which make a certain composition musical in character. You will appreciate that all the poetical renderings do not automatically qualify to be called musical. Therefore, there must be some basic character which would make a rendering musical, which we would now understand. A composition becomes to qualify to belong to the category of musical composition when it rests on the following three cornerstones, viz. A. Swar or sound, B. Tal, lay or beat tune, C. Rag or melody. These three are the fundamental constituent of music. Swar. Swar is the sound which has some meaning and which possesses a distinct identity. Sound becomes music only when it holds a specific connotation among the other sounds along with rhythm. Music, be it Indian or Western, is based on swaras. It is composed of different configurations of swaras. The basic swar in Indian music is called shahdaj. It is also known as the basic swar. Since the literal meaning of the word shahdaj is six, it can be easily understood that this basic swar is always related to 6 other swaras. The spectrum of swaras in Indian music is thus composed of 7 bands, also known as saptak. In Indian music, the swaras are not related with the fixed pitch unlike the Western music. It is the musicians here who defines the pitch of sahdaj, and accordingly other 6 swaras get located on the musical spectrum. Western music, however, has the concept of an absolute pitch. This means specific pitch for specific swaras. Likewise, the musical instruments are created according to fixed pitches. The second important element in Indian music is the beat or tal. Traditionally, tal is considered as an integral feature of Indian music. It is a process through which rhythm gets depicted in musical compositions. The tal is further measured in terms of the numerical content of the pulse in each composition. Thus, when the pulse is slow, the composition is called vilambit. A medium pulse count makes it madhyam. The faster counts are called drut phase. Innumerable combinations of these pulse counts provide such a tremendous variety in Indian music. The tals are generally played through precision percussion instruments such as junjun, manjira, etc., mridang, pakhavaj, tabla, drums, etc. The music components who play tal instruments also practice a vocabulary of their own during the performances. Some of these words are theka, bol, gat, tutra, tithal, palta, etc. The two main percussion instruments, tabla and mridang, used in North Indian and South Indian music systems respectively, use the same word. The third chief element of music is melody, which is also the characteristic feature of Indian music, whereas Western music is known for its harmony. The Indian music is famous for its melody. Interestingly, melody is not confined to India but is the main element of the musical traditions in such countries as Iran, Arabia, Afghanistan, China, etc. The central manifestation of a rag is delightfulness. It is still possible to have a composition of sound which may not delight. We shall not call it rag. There are, in addition to the quality of delightfulness, 10 other features that make a rag. The various permutations and combinations of these features give birth to the whole repertoire of rag music. Another significant quality of a rag is that it should also be imbibed with sentiments. The melody, it is believed in Indian music, becomes mechanical if it is devoid of the sensuousness. Thus, element of sensuousness creates a subdivision of rag which is called ragini. It will not be out of place here to tell you that the famous Rag Mula series of paintings in India are in fact based on this element, as they depict the various moods of rag and ragini in their pictorial representation. Summary. We recapitulate the main features of this unit thus. Dance is part of a musical triumvirate of song, instrument and dance. The three cannot be separated, yet in many ways retain individual identity. Dance can be traced in the form of an art from the dawn of Indian civilization. Centuries of refinements and introduction of new elements have today made dance one of the most elaborate arts. It is also sustained by a rich theoretical lexicon and vivid details of technique. Since dance is an essentially visual art, it has also found a prominent place in the rich tapestry of Indian culture. Thus, sculptures on temples and paintings, both mural and miniature, have depicted dance in its myriad forms rather profusely. Indian musical tradition goes as far back as second millennium before Christ. The two main styles of Indian classical music in existence now are North Indian and Carnatic styles. The essential elements of music are swara, tal, and rag. The Indian classical music recognizes a spectrum, seven swaras, of which the permanent one is called shahdaj. All other swaras relate essentially to shahdaj for determining their position on the spectrum. The Indian classical music is today flourishing under the patronage of different traditional families called gharanas.